Now to go ahead and create our own custom tab with our merge fields, I'm going to go up to the top and click clear because I don't want to overwrite anything. And then I'll start from scratch. And this one I'm going to call it, well, I'm going to do another allergies. I know I've already got like 3 or 4 or 5 allergies here, but I'll call this one ALK or ALKI. That means that is the code for allergies. Kirt created it, and then call it. After I type in the code and then also the name of the tab, I can check the box allow multiple entries. For most offices, you'll almost always want to check this because you're going to have a record every time the patient comes in. If you don't check it, it just means that you can only write that record once. The only time you probably don't want to check it is if you go ahead and you create a tab that is for emergency contact, because usually there's only one emergency contact anyways. That way you leave that unchecked or not have multiple entries for emergency contacts. Next, you can have your sort by fields, which aren't available just yet until you actually add the fields, because then you can sort by last name and then sort by first name. And then you have these little DS, DE, SC boxes. That means descending. If it's checked, it's going to be sorting descending from Z to A. If you uncheck it, it's going to be A to Z. So over to the right, do I want to include this on the patient tab? Now if I say I want to include it, remember it's not always going to show unless I check the box adjacent to it that I always want to show the tab. Now, if there are going to be a lot of patients that I won't use this tab on that won't have allergies, then I'll leave it unchecked so I can pull it on the fly. Again, so I can come back here and go to the custom tabs and then click on the add tab, and it's just a click away for me to pull it up if I need to use it. So I'll say it's to always show the tab. If you signed up for EMR, you can do the same thing, always show it in EMR or not. I would like to include this in my mail merges. This one you want to be careful about. You can check if you want to lock the data entered on this tab permanently after 24 hours, but there's a big warning. Once you mark it, it cannot be changed back, and all the info on this tab is instantly locked. So if you instantly lock it and you didn't want to, then the only thing to do is, I suppose, delete it, but then remember the trouble you're going to run into if you delete this tab and then try to create the exact same thing by using the exact same names. You may have to have AdvancedMD reset your database if you tried to recreate everything if you destroyed everything. So in any case, that one I wouldn't check unless you're absolutely sure you want to lock everything down for those fields. Once we're finished here, we click Save, and then once we save it, you can see it's highlighted down below here. And then to start adding fields to your tab, just go down at the bottom and click on the Add New button. The screen pops up, in which case you'll type in the name of your field that you're creating. Give you a quick overview, you have your different data types here, and the first one is your calculated. And right now the only calculation you can do in AdvancedMD is for the BMI, or the body mass index. And even though you select it, really the first thing you need to set up is your weight and your height boxes. And then go ahead and select the calculated so it can calculate that. So first, to show you, I'll go ahead and type in weight. The data type I'm going to set to text, and the format over here, well, if I leave it blank, I can type in numbers and also text. Or I can choose the format and say that this is going to be for weight. And then I can check the box to include it in the mail merge, and then check it if I want it required. So I'll check it and then click OK, and it adds down below with my little asterisk. That means it's required. Okay, the next thing I want to do is add my height, so I'll go ahead and click Add New. Use the same data type text and then obviously choose height, and then make it required and include in the mail merge and click OK. Now after I've got both my weight and my height, then I can go ahead and create my BMI or the calculation for by clicking on the Add New button, and then type in BMI, select Calculated. Now, if I don't have my weight and height already entered, and I try to do this first and click OK, it's going to warn me and say you cannot create the BMI until you at least get the 2 other fields, the weight and the height, already entered. So I'll click OK, it's all happy. And then to show you the rest of the different data types you can enter in, I'll click on Add New again. And after we did our calculations by entering in the weight and the height first, then I can enter in my BMI calculated. The next is the checkbox, so maybe you want to have a bunch of checkboxes like we did for generic. By checking this, it allows the doctor or physician when entering the data to have a box to check, either yes, it's generic, or no. You can also do the date, and again if I select date, it just depends on the data type what type of values or formats you have to the right, or default values down below. Do you want it always to be today's date, yesterday, backwards or forwards? Next is the text. So you can enter in, well, about 100 characters versus the multi-line text where you can add up to 2,000 characters. But you want to keep in mind that when it comes to mail merge, the most that it will pull over is the first 255 words. So although you can go beyond that, remember it's only going to pull in 255. As of right now, AdvancedMD is working on a fix so you can pull in everything. Next is your drop-down list. So all you have to do is choose from the list here, and again the pound signs means that AdvancedMD has created a drop-down list for you, or the ones without are the ones that I created, and I'll show you how to create those drop-down lists. And then you have a lookup field, which is the ellipsis button that you've seen a lot of in AdvancedMD. And the lookup types is defaulted. You can't pick or choose. Either you want to have a little lookup button that you can select some patients, responsible party, a user. You can add those to your custom tabs. And then finally numeric. Do you want to add numbers into a field? Do you want it with 0? Do you want it 2 decimals with money? So for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to checkbox, and like I said, I'll just create a few fields here so you can get an idea of how this is supposed to work. I'll say this one is acute and give it a checkbox. And do I want the default value to be checked? In other words, yes, it's acute, or just leave it blank. I do want to include it in the mail merge. I'll click OK. I'll go ahead and add another one, and I'll call it, and then I'll do a checkbox as well. And I'll include it in the mail merge and click OK. Add another one. Now this one, I want to add a drop-down field for a status. You can see here the drop-down list. I want it a custom drop-down list. In other words, I can choose from the list here, but I don't know what these drop-down lists are or what they do. I mean, what are in the allergies drop-down list for AdvancedMD or in these other fields here? To find out, I'm going to click cancel. I'm going to save my work before I close out of here, or I can leave it open and then just simply go under the master files menu to custom tab setup and then go over and down to custom drop-down list. And here's a list of all the ones that have been set up or worked on. Again, you've got the pound signs, which is AdvancedMD. They created this. And then you can scroll down and see the ones that I created. Now there's a pattern that you can see that's going on here. For example, you can see in the allergies menu or drop-down list, it has penicillin, sulfa, barbiturates, and you can click and drag in this field up here and it goes on and on and on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click clear. I'm going to create a status, type in the name status, hit the tab key, and I want to follow the pattern I see down below to program my drop-down list. So the first thing that's going to be in the list, I'm going to type in the number 1. I'm going to hit the comma. Now there's going to be no spaces at all with everything I'm typing here. So if it looks like it's a space, no, there are no spaces. 1 comma, then the first name, which will be, I'll type in first noted. What I'm going to do is use a separator or a delimiter, a semicolon, and go to the next item in the list, number 2, comma, and then the second item that's going to appear, we'll say is worsened, semicolon, and then the next 3, comma, we'll say improved, semicolon, 4, comma, and then finally resolved. When I'm finished, I'll go ahead and click save. And the one thing that you want to keep in mind is that you cannot add characters in here. For example, you can see that I don't have any special characters like forward slashes or dashes. If you do, this box will outline in red and shade in blue, and if you hover over it, it'll say that it doesn't like what you're doing. So don't use any characters. So once I created it, I'm done. And I can always come back in here and edit it just by simply selecting it. Like I can select any one of these other ones here and edit it to, maybe it's not plural, it's just animal, and then click save. So I close out, and then I can go back to my custom patient tabs. I can go ahead and click add new. And again, I only minimized it. I didn't close out of the screen here. I can type in status, and I want it to be a drop-down list. In my drop-down list, you can see it down below is status. Excellent. And then I can say include it in the mail merge, and if I wanted to, I could say it's always first noted as the default. Maybe that's what I'll do. Click OK, it adds it. Finally, I do want a note so the doctor can type in some notes. I'll click add new, and maybe we'll just simply say note or notes. And then I can either do text, which again, you won't be able to add as much text, up to about 100 characters, versus multi-line, which is up to 2,000 characters, but only the first 255 words will pull into a mail merge. So let's do multi-line text. and then we'll include it in a list view. And again, that means that I can go ahead and add multiple entries and then also include it in the mail merge. Click OK. It adds it. Once I'm done with all this, all I have to do is click Save to save all the fields and the tab as a whole. Let's go ahead and take a look at our work. So I want to pull up the patient demographics, and I can either go up at the top and click on the dude and type in Carrie Heffernan's name, or since she's already open but I minimized, I can click on her name down at the bottom. Now, when you weren't looking, I refreshed it, but what really happened is that Allergy 5 wouldn't pull up. Think of it this way. If you're in any screen and you create information and you have other screens open, those other screens aren't going to refresh unless you actually close out and open them back up. Or, in this case for Carrie Heffernan, what I did is typed in HEF and hit the tab key, and then it refreshes it and it pulls up Allergy 5. So then I can go ahead and view it. You can see the fields down below, the ones that are marked red are required. So let's do a quick example. Let's say the weight is 175 pounds. The height, now it's important how you type it in, 6 apostrophe, let's do 6'10", and then do quotes. So 6 apostrophe, no spaces, 10 quotes, then hit the tab key, automatically calculates the BMI. Terrific. And then I can say this is maybe acute, the allergy first noted, or maybe you can see that the first noted was defaulted, or let's say it wasn't first noted. I could choose worst, but I'll leave it there. And then type in, okay. When I'm finished, go ahead and click Save, and then if there's anything that's wrong, it'll tell you. Now, it's saying it's containing invalid information. I did that on purpose, because if you don't type in LBS and hit the tab key, you won't be able to add in anything. Because when you hover over boxes that are outlined in red and shaded in blue, it'll tell you exactly how you need to enter them. So it's telling me I got to enter in 175 or 145 space LBS. So I'm going to need to make sure I put a space in there. Click Save. Perfect, it adds it up at the top.